As iconic as Compton, California has become in hip-hop, it was going to have its share of undeserved casualties. Granted, it was promoted to being a rap music powerhouse by the trailblazing group N.W.A. But its main downside is that other acts, regardless of their greatness, have been overshadowed by N.W.A. Case in point, David Marvin Blake. Similar to N.W.A. producer Dr. Dre, David Blake was born and raised in Compton, as he would later titularly declare, and he was inspired by funk and soul music. And just like Dre, David attended Centennial High School, but did not graduate, though no fault of his own. Apparently, the lure of the streets was too powerful to ignore, especially considering that David was in a single-mother household with 9 siblings, which would later be dispersed when the bank foreclosed on their home in 1986 when he was 16 years of age. He eventually joined the Treetop Piru Bloods, a set of the Bloods gang identified by the streets of their territory named after various types of trees. David and his family, for instance, lived on Spruce Street. There was another factor in halting his formal education: hip-hop, which would eventually wean David off the streets. David got his hands on rap records such as the Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight and LL Cool J's Radio, and his growing interest was eventually rewarded with a turntable to commemorate the completion of his middle school years. High school now beckoned. But when his mother moved to Louisiana post-foreclosure, and he subsequently couldn't attend high school any longer, bouncing from one place to another throughout Compton and South Central Los Angeles, David went all in on rap music. He started producing and selling homemade mixtapes, most notably the Red Tape, which would be name-checked several times in subsequent years and featured his friends, aspiring rappers High C and the duo Second to None. By 1988, he was already playing around with comparatively more sophisticated equipment, such as the SB-1200 and the Tascam 8-track. Now renowned as a neighborhood DJ, his audience, which included fellow Bloods, marveled at his rapid pace of queuing one record after the other. David Blake was now DJ Quik, with the C removed to avoid the letter sequence CK, which, to him as a Blood, meant Crip Killer. The only thing he wanted to do at that point was to kill it with his records, and certain entities were showing up to assist him in doing just that. Suge Knight, a celebrity bodyguard turned aspiring music exec, had an artist management company to which he had signed Dr. Dre and the D.O.C. Both artists had record deals with Ruthless Records, the home of N.W.A. and distributed by Priority Records. Quik would have loved to be part of the family. Reportedly, N.W.A.'s de facto leader and Ruthless Records label head, Eazy-E, offered him $1 million to join his crew. But to Priority Records founder Brian Turner, the distribution partnership already had N.W.A. Adding Quik would have been redundant. Besides, at the time, Knight wouldn't have liked the idea of Quik being an artist on Ruthless. Why would he, when he was working on getting Dre and the D.O.C. out of there? Luckily for Quik, another company was interested in scooping him up. New York-based Profile Records had achieved their greatest success with Run DMC, peaking with the triple platinum Raising Hell in 1986. But Quik seemed to provide more promise as a younger, 19-year-old wonderkind. He wasn't just a producer and DJ. Influenced by the high-pitched voice of Eazy-E, Quik had also started writing raps to accompany his lush instrumentals, thereby presenting himself as a one-two punch. While N.W.A. was releasing and promoting their EP in the summer of 1990 as the follow-up to their trailblazing Straight Outta Compton album, Quik signed on the dotted line, with Profile Records providing him an advance of over $100,000. It was the first 6-figure deal for the company. No one else had gotten that. Not Special Ed, Dana Dane, or even the now revered Run DMC. By the time he signed, Quik had been homeless for 3 years. Now he could get more than just a roof over his head. QUIK Is the Name was supposed to be a mixtape, which might explain why it took a little over 2 weeks to record it. Indeed, the Red Tape, released in 1990, is what piqued Profile Records' interest in Quik. There was also an economic incentive. Handed over a $30,000 budget and being billed $1,000 per day at Westlake Recording Studios in Santa Monica, Quik, with his hastened recording schedule, ended up pocketing $13,000. A few overdubs, a touch of a bass guitar, and some scratched hooks alongside some reworking of material from the red tape, and out came Quick Is the Name on January 15th, 1991. A month prior to the album's release, Profile had put out Born and Raised in Compton, which actually first appeared on the red tape. Remastered in 16-track glory, Born and Raised in Compton beams with pride in the city, and it's strengthened by his energetic interpretation of Isaac Hayes' hyperbolic syllabisesque Dali Mystic, which is buttressed by choral synth pads and N.W.A. vinyl scratches. It was the first nationwide taste of what to expect from Quik, a soulful, mid-tempo, highly melodic sound that attempted to prove the musicianship of a sample-reliant genre such as hip-hop. Commercially, Born and Raised in Compton didn't make much of an impact, but the next single did. Tonight rides the smooth, common post-disco gloss of Clear's 1984 namesake B-side, layered over a steady, strident drum beat from the TR-808's drum machine. LA Dream Team producer The Real Richie Rich enhances the production with warm synth pads. Tonight was spiritually inspired by Quik's absorption of Dre's production in the DLC's No One Can Do It Better, lyrically and thematically, with the vocals of Betty Wright to enforce the title and the hook. Tonight is a recount of a weekend of partying, gambling, getting high, and drinking at Quik's crib, including a seemingly near-death episode after downing 4 cups of a gin and sporting beverage concoction. But even after appealing to the Most High to deliver him from his scary episode, with a few women on the way to his place, does anyone realistically think that's going to stop Quik from ever drinking again?
Don't you want drinking no more? Yeah, right, because as soon as they come, we doing the same old shit.
And after the bars and hooks are delivered, there's this beautiful flourish of electric piano and guitar playing within the last minutes of the song, like Quik was being backed by a band or something. You weren't getting a lot of that from rap in '91. Tonight, the high mark of Quik Is the Name, and which scored him his first Billboard 100 hit with a peak of number 49, is exemplary of Quik's aura as the Compton homeboy you can hang out with. He has a bit of danger, but he's not threatening, and he may be a blood, but he's rarely a gun-toting gangster, which, ironically, is the reverse for N.W.A. All Quik wants to do is have a great time and get laid. The get laid part is first represented with the album's opening track, Sweet Black Pussy, which bounces, no pun intended, on a funky slice of Blowfly's The Incredible Folk. The upbeat atmosphere perfectly sets up Quik for an expression of his carnal preference for black women, delivering charming lines like,
Somebody try to act unfair. Maybe it's because my hair is longer than theirs. But I don't give a fuck, no, I don't care, because I'm like Noah's Ark. My bitches come in pairs.
So, Sweet Black Pussy, Tonight, and Born and Raised in Compton constitute the strongest section of Quik Is the Name. The rest of the album doesn't quite measure up, although Quik's strength saved the album from the doldrums of mediocrity. After all, here is a man who has a predilection for 70s funk and soul records. Granted, there are acceptable exceptions. You'd think a track like Tear It Off, which gallops with a booming drum break with flourishes of funk melody, would have been more suitable for an East Coast or more skilled MC, such as Big Daddy Kane. But Quik and guest AMG admirably pull it off. Deep, which is horn-splattered due to Fred Wesley samples and features an X-Clan inspired hook, has Quik turn up the hood menace a few notches.
In plain simple English, no ain't in plain simple slang, no driving. It with me is more lethal than drinking and driving.
And the title track, which ended up being the third and last single off the album, speeds through 2 minutes and 48 seconds with a barge of a battering ram.
I love short suckers, they can't get none of this, let alone some of this. I'm a musical genius, and if you my role, I'll beat you as if we was playing Tecmo Bowl.
Quik, however, must have correctly sensed that slower, mid-tempo cuts fused with celebratory verve work best for his simple, easygoing flow and high-pitched voice. And even though he had stated several times that Eazy-E was his main rapping inspiration, respectfully, he was way better than Eazy. Also, tracks like the Quik's Groove instrumental, which emerges earlier as the backdrop for Dedication, and the alcohol dedication-oriented 8-Ball, which feels like a semi-tribute to Eazy's earlier namesake track, reveals a man who was emerging as a multi-instrumentalist, trying to avoid being restricted to the prevailing sampling mindset of the era. Indeed, Quik Quik's groove spawned a series with virtually every subsequent album containing a live instrumentation track. It still remains an unprecedented tradition. Also worthy of mention is I Got That Feeling, which writes the opulent soul of the emotions a feeling is. QUIK Is the Name is one of those few early rap albums that feels musical. Outside of the finely produced music though, there isn't much else. If anyone questioned the necessity of yet another gangsta rapper, no thanks to the proliferation that was occurring in the West around 1991, they can't necessarily be blamed. Associated with the Bloods gang, QUIK has his share of stories to recount, embellish, or fabricate. He indulges in drugs and alcohol like the aforementioned Tonight at 8 Ball. He acknowledges fallen comrades in dedication. He spins a first-person hood narrative with Loked Out Hood, and he closes out the entire project with the cheery and sexually graphic I Got That Feeling and Scandalous. Every now and then, associates and protégés such as Red Tape alumni Second to None and High C, as well as the previously mentioned AMG, who was shaping up to becoming the Southern Californian answer to Too Short, minus the hits, career length, and discography, would show up to burnish QUIK's relatively carefree mood. Their best showing would be the place where they all converge, the closing track, Scandalous. Turns out that all these guys are horny little bastards. High C, who ended up using the song's title for his debut album later that year, would steal the show with his closing couplet.
Boyfriend always talking about doggy style. Wait a while, I can do it froggy style.
No surprise High C had a song entitled Froggy Style in his debut album. Not everything on QUIK Is the Name is a winner. The Bomb Bud in particular is a laughable reggae-inspired track in which QUIK unsuccessfully tries to sing about his passionate dependency on weed. Et patois. Cause back then, many rappers couldn't help but associate Bob Marley with cannabis. Also, the sheer audacity of making the Bomb Bud the B-side to the title track single. Unfortunately for him, the single, unlike the first two, didn't chart. Over to you, Cypress Hill.
I understand you from Compton and everything, you know, you talk about Compton and everything. Why another record about Compton? Didn't like N.W.A. and Ice Cube cover all that, you know? Well, sort of, kind of. You see, they was like real on the gangster tip, you know what I'm saying? We got like a real fun side to our stuff, you know what I'm saying?
DJ Quik must have eventually understood that the aggressive, exaggerated gangster rap path was already forged by the likes of N.W.A., and that G-Funk would be championed on a mainstream level by the group's producer, Dr. Dre. There was also Ice-T, who leaned more toward social-political discourse. Not all gangsters can be the same. QUIK comfortably found his niche with QUIK Is the Name, bolstered by two singles that made it to the top 5 on the Billboard Rap Singles Chart and top 20 on the R&B Singles Chart. The album was gold within 4 months. It was certified platinum 4 years later. Today, it might represent a little more than a launching pad, but QUIK Is the Name deserves more props than it currently receives. It could be that QUIK's productions would become more refined and more robust over the next several albums, and that his rhyming skills would always remain merely adequate. But here's the thing. Although acts like Stetsasonic were already playing around with live instrumentation alongside sampling, they were not doing so as impressively as QUIK, and he definitely beat West Coast counterparts such as Dr. Dre and Cold 187 to the punch. In addition, you can trace a straight line from QUIK's debut to albums such as Warren G's Regulate, G-Funk era in terms of musical milieu, lyrical themes, and commercial impact. Not all of gangsta rap needed to be about being confrontational or a menace to society. Even decades after its initial release, QUIK Is the Name still remains as one of the finest hip-hop albums of the 90s, in addition to being one of the LPs that helped propel the musical and stylistic dominance the Western US region would wield over the world of rap further into the decade. As, to paraphrase him, a funky dope brother never ceasing to impress, QUIK had come to terms with the fact that he would continue to be eclipsed by the intertwined realm of Ruthless and Death Row for the rest of the 90s, even as he worked with some of the people it spawned. But hey, in this instance, being a close second to something grand isn't bad at all. Thanks for watching. For those new here, welcome to Rap Perspective. For the Rappleheads, I greatly appreciate your support. Don't forget to like, comment on, and share this video, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I encourage everyone to watch, like, comment on, and share other videos on here. See you in the next video.